Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So we keep a lot of medium-sized cichlids such as
The electric blue acara, we have different types of geophagus, a lot of different stuff in that 4 to 7 inch range that you kind of think, can I keep anything with this? Is it gonna get eaten? And we have some really good ideas on what will work well with them.
So today we're going to show you our top 10 picks of tetras to pair with these types of cichlids. All right, so the first tetra I want to talk about is the blood cap tetra. This is an African tetra coming from the Republic of Congo. It's a deep body tetra getting about 3 inches. Water parameters are going to be about 6.0 to 7.5 pH and 72 to 77 degrees, so a little on the cooler side. And they have a few different unique characteristics that I like about this fish. One is the black spot between the anal and caudal fin. Obviously, it's called a blood cap, so it has the red spot in front of the dorsal fin, and it also has these really cool black striations throughout the body. And it's a newer tetra. You don't find them very readily, but they're out there if you look and are patient. And they're just a unique, bigger-bodied tetra that do well with medium-sized cichlids.
So the first tetra on my list is the Emperor tetra, and for me this has kind of been a staple in all the tanks I've ever had, but specifically in every tank that I've had medium-sized cichlids in. So I'm talking about the Nematobrycon lacordii or the palmeri. So there's multiple subspecies of these Emperor tetra, and I've kept both of them. I do prefer the lacordii, I think, for cichlids and for other larger, medium to larger size fish because they're a little more assertive than the palmeri, and they're really easy to keep. pH 5 to 7.5, temps can range from 72 to 80. They only get to be about 2 or 2.5 inches, so they're not super large, but just their assertive nature and the way that they don't get pushed around. They're not a type of tetra that is easily phased by anything, so I've never seen them have any problems. I've also put smaller ones in there, like when they're about an inch or so, and I've put them with different types of latacara, with just acara in general, geophagus. So I'm not putting them with crazy aggressive cichlids. I mean, we're not talking about putting them in with like Jack Dempsey's or Oscars. They're obviously going to get eaten, but within reason, any fish within that 4 to like 7 or 8 inch range that they're not just going to swallow anything they see. These fish are great options. They move around a lot. They're not boring. They're really pretty, specifically the lacordii. They have blood red eyes. They're actually called the rainbow emperor tetra because they get such pretty iridescence. And the males can actually, I've seen them get up to 3 inches. So it really just depends. They're very easy fish to keep, and they do really well with a lot of different fish.
So my next pick is going to be the Cichlids tetra. These get about 2.5 to 3 inches. They come from Peru, pH about 5.6 to 7.2. Temps can go all the way up to 80 to the mid to low 70s. And while this is not going to be the biggest tetra out there, the nice thing about these guys is they're very boisterous, they're very gregarious, they're very active, but they're still very peaceful as well. So they're going to be fast enough to stay away from anything that's trying to nip them, and also have the confidence to not even let them bother them. So just a really cool fish. And what I really love about this fish is they have these green bodies and red fins. And when the males are spawning, they turn almost like a chrome color. They really fire up really nicely. And they're just a really cool fish. Another one that you don't see very often, but one that I highly recommend.
So next on my list is the blueberry tetra, or Hyphesibrycon wadai, and these guys come from the Rio Tapajos in Brazil, and again, a very easy to keep fish. pH can go anywhere from 5.5 to 7.5. The temperatures can range from 68 to 79. They get about 2.5 to 3 inches. And the nice thing about these guys is you can actually keep them in tanks that have a little bit faster flow. They come from a place naturally where there's a lot of movement in the water, and they really enjoy moving themselves. They're just active fish. They like to use space. If you have a larger tank, they do really well. I'd say the smallest tank they should be in is a 40 breeder because they really do enjoy using the tank space to just kind of look at everything. They're very, very active fish, and so they're really enjoyable. And I've noticed that we keep them specifically with latacara, but we've moved them around with the different cichlids, and they never seem to even notice anything else in the tank but each other. So for me, that's a great attribute, just because you don't really want tetra that are going to be nippy, and they're definitely not. They ignore everything, but they are very social with each other and just absolutely gorgeous to look at. I don't know if there is a prettier Tetra at a more reasonable price point. These guys are usually right around $10, and they only came into the hobby in 2016, so they're a relatively new fish. But because of the popularity, because of how they look and just how hardy they are overall, they've been bred quite heavily, which is great because it's kept that price point down. So this is a really amazing staple fish that I think everybody should keep.
Next on my list is the 4-spot Splash Tetra, which is a very unique Tetra. It gets its name from the 4 black spots starting from its face all the way down the side there, as you can see. And these are very unique Tetras. Well, first let me talk about water parameters. So they're going to go from 5.0 to 8.0 pH, so they'll actually do well in like some Lake Tanganyika setups. Temperature-wise is going to be really wide as well, 70 to 82. And they get about 3.25, 3.5 inches full grown. And the interesting thing about these Tetras is like they're not like most Tetras, where most Tetras are egg scatters. These actually have parental care. Only the males do. So they'll lay small little clutches of eggs, and the female will go off and do whatever, and the male will stick around and guard them and protect them. So if they're spawning in your aquarium, they can have territories, but if they're not spawning, then they'll be perfectly peaceful. And they're really fast and really peaceful. So again, when you have some cichlids with the bigger mouths like the Laticara or any of the Acaras really, they're not going to be able to get this fish. They're not going to be able to swallow this fish. So it's just a really good fish for your medium cichlids.
Okay, so on to the Khyber's Tetra, or Pseudochalceus khybersi. These guys come from coastal rivers on the Pacific side of Colombia, and really easy parameters like many South American and Central American fish. pH can be around 6 to 7, 7.5. Temps can be 73 to 79, so kind of nice. These guys can take it a little bit cooler. They do get to be about 3.5, 4 inches. Sometimes they can even creep a little bit over 4 inches. And this is a Tetra. They are a more aggressive Tetra. So they can be more aggressive with each other. The males can have, little skirmishes within the tanks as if there's too many in a small tank. But if you have a good sized tank, I'd say like at least a 55 or so. These are an amazing fish to keep with larger cichlids. You could even keep them up into like the 10-inch range, and I feel like these fish are going to have no issues at all. They're extremely quick moving, they're very assertive, but they don't pick on larger fish. So if you have anything smaller in there, it's definitely something to be wary of. I probably wouldn't try and keep anything smaller with these fish, but they're, like I said, an excellent option if you have maybe a little more aggressive, larger cichlids. These guys would work really well.
So next on the list is a very underrated Tetra in my opinion, and that is the African red-eye Tetra. These come from Nigeria. They like temperatures between 72 and 80, pH 6.0 to 7.5, and they get around 4 inches, give or take a half inch. Now what I really like about this fish is obviously the way they look. So they have really big scales comparable to the size of the fish, which is not very common for Tetras, so that's pretty cool. It kind of makes them stand out. I'm also a sucker for a nice lateral line, and when these guys are happy, they get this like yellowish, bluish, green hue all along their body. It's very pretty, and of course they do have the red eye, which also stands out. But just a Tetra that you don't see very many people keep, and they are excellent for cichlids because they are big, they are fast, but they are still, again, very peaceful. So they're not fin nippers. Unless you have like 3. Again, with all these Tetras, the more you have, the less fin nipping there will be.
So next up, I have watermelon Tetra. They're Hemigrammus caeruleus. This is one of my favorite schooling fish for medium to larger cichlids. These guys get really deep bodied, so they only get to be about 2.5 to 3 inches, but they're really, really stout. They school really tightly, and they're really quick moving. So I think that combination really makes for a nice pairing for larger cichlids. They seem to have no issues at all. I kept mine with different species of Acara, Geophagus, and some other random stuff, and there was never a problem. A really, really pretty fish, really easy to take care of. pH is going to be from 5.5 to 7.5, temps from 75 to 82. And the nice thing about this fish, there are the males, really. The males in the morning when the lights come on, they turn deep blood red all over their body. Their fins go black, and they just move around lightning quick trying to flash to all the females. And it's a sight to see, and they do it every day like clockwork, and they'll even do it sometimes throughout the day if they're feeling so inclined. The females are kind of a silvery pink color. They're still really pretty, but as long as you have a good amount of males in there, they are a really enjoyable fish to watch.
So last on my list is the Bleeding Heart Tetra. And this is a somewhat common Tetra in that I see it in fish stores a lot, but it's uncommon in that I don't see it in fish tanks a lot. And I think that's pretty sad because it's a very underrated Tetra. These come from Peru. And one thing I noticed about the literature on these guys is they're usually listed as 2 to 2.5 max size. And from my personal experience, that is just not true. I've kept these a few times, and one time I kept them outside during the summer in a 300-gallon tub, and they got absolutely massive. They were pushing 4 inches easily. They looked like little apples kind of bobbing around in the water. They were huge. So take what you read with a grain of salt. My own personal experience is they got much bigger than 2.5 inches. They do accept a wide range of water parameters, pH down to 4, up to 7.5. Temperature from 70 to 82, although I will say if you're keeping them cool, don't keep them cool for too long. I had to get rid of these. I had to pull these out of the summer tub really fast when it started getting down into the 70s, when the temperature did. They just didn't like it. I found the sweet spot to be right around 76 to 77 with these guys, and that's where I would keep them now. They are a little more sluggish, so they're not going to be like a fast-moving Tetra. They come from like pools or very slow-moving water. There's just not a lot of movement where they come from, so you don't need a lot of flow in the aquarium, which can be nice. But all in all, just a very underrated Tetra in my opinion, and I think more people should keep them.
So my last pick is the Lampi Congo Tetra, Phenacogrammus aroniakis. They come from the Democratic Republic of the Congo in the upper Congo River Basin, and very similar parameters to most South American fish as well. So pH is 6 to 7.5. Temps can be 72 to 82, and they do get a little bit larger than some of the Tetras on my list. So they're about 3.5 to 4 inches. They're really beautiful fish. They're really peaceful fish. So they're definitely a Tetra that you're not going to want to keep with anything that's too feisty or aggressive, but they will do really well with the more peaceful Acara and Geophagus that are in that like 4 to 7 inch range. No problem at all. They'll be basically a centerpiece fish for you. So you can have a schooling fish that doubles as a centerpiece fish with your cichlids. It's kind of like a win-win-win. They're really beautiful fish, and they are on the upper end of the price range, but I'm going to be honest, I think they're worth every penny.
All right, there you have it, our 10 picks. There's a lot more than 10, obviously.
Yes.
So if any of you out there are keeping medium-sized cichlids and want to throw out your suggestions, leave them down below in the comment. If you happen to like any of the fish that we showed in this video and you want to get them, we have links with discount codes down in the description. Check it out. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one.
Go buy some fish, guys.